For those who don't know, I had a little spontaneous trip to Chicago to visit my step-grandparents, and we were able to go to a bookstore, and I have a few books to show you guys. So this is going to be part book haul and part little tips and tricks I have for you guys on buying books or going to a bookstore when you're on vacation. I have 3 books for you and a handful of tips. Let's get into it. We drove to Chicago, so already had a little bit more leniency as far as buying things, but even with that, I would have been able to fit everything into my little carry-on suitcase. I had a lot of self-restraint that I'm really proud of, but I'm also excited with what I got. So we went to Myopic Books, which is a used bookstore that's been in Chicago for like 30 years. Unfortunately, they don't allow filming inside it, so I don't have a lot of footage, especially the inside, but it's a crazy big bookstore for being in such a big city. It has 3 stories, an upstairs and a downstairs, and the shelves go really high, and like it's kind of a little bit of a labyrinth when you get further in, a bit of a tight squeeze in a few places. So just something to keep in mind for if you're wanting to visit. I love to go and support indie bookshops when I can, especially when I'm traveling and getting to see stuff that I can't see every day because I don't live there. So yeah, I'll get right into my little book haul. Nice and quick because I haven't read them yet, so I don't know too much about them. First, I have Embroideries by Marjane Strappy. I should have looked that up. Can you tell that my admin is not that great, that I really should prep these things ahead of time, so much apologies. But she's the author from the pretty well-known graphic novel series Persepolis, and I have read that series by her, and I didn't know she had this one out, so I'm excited to pick it up and read it. It sounds very interesting. It's about the sex lives of Iranian women. Hello, I'm down, let's go. I love me in a niche point of view on a particular topic, and this came out in 2005, so I don't know why I don't see it in more bookstores, but I love picking up books that are just a pleasant surprise I didn't know existed, and I don't see them around a whole lot, so this was a really good find. Second, I have Dead Collections by Isaac Feldman, and look at this cover. I was just blown away. This cover is really doing the most right now. It really won me over. Even before I read the summary, I was just like, please have it be something I'm remotely interested in because it's such a fun cover. But yeah, so it's apparently, it's been a minute. Oh, so here's what got me in this synopsis. So when archivist Soul meets Elise, the larger-than-life widow of a moderately famous television writer who's come to donate her wife's papers, there's an instant spark. But Soul has a secret. He suffers from an illness called vampirism. That cracked me up, thinking of vampirism as a disease or illness, which just seemed like this would be a fun and quirky little read. There's a lot of comments about it being beautiful and clever and blah, 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 but sold. Sold, already sold. And yeah, I got both of those used, so it didn't cost me nearly as much, and they're both unique finds of just books I hadn't heard of, but I'm really excited about now, and who knows if they would have gotten on my radar any other way, and they're definitely going to be very memorable of this trip to Chicago. My third one is a book I didn't actually get in Myopic Books, but is a book that my step-grandma Diane generously gave me. So it is Woman of Light by Callie Fajardo-Anstine. And I haven't heard of this author, so that's a fun little way that books get into your life, new authors get into your life. And it's apparently a generational saga of an indigenous Chicano family in the American West. Yes, okay. I'm always trying to read more diversely, get out of my comfort zone, read new authors, or new to me, as well as different point of views, different perspectives, different lived experiences. So I can't say I really remember having read any books that are from the lens of indigenous peoples or Chicano peoples, and I haven't read a lot of generational sagas. I'm not the biggest history fiction buff, but the generational sagas I have read, Homegoing, Pachinko, I really loved, so I should really try reading them more than once every blue moon. And then the little, I guess, tagline before the synopsis goes, there's one every generation, a seer who keeps the stories. I don't know if there's magical realism in this or not, but it just seems like an interesting thread to have to kind of connect the different generations, and that narrative style or perspective I think will be cool. So, and it's a signed copy, so I really hope I like it, because, you know, I love it. Those are the 3 books I got. But I thought I just would share some tips and tricks for going to bookstores, looking at books, buying books when you're on a trip, because I used to work in a bookstore, so I've kind of developed, and I've traveled a little bit, so I've kind of developed certain strategies and techniques so that I don't get overwhelmed in a bookstore, because it's so easy to do. You have a limited amount of time there, especially on a trip, and a limited amount of stuff you can take back with you, and there's so many books. So here are the few tips I have to hopefully help you guys out. The first thing that I like to do is I will look for the short books, the small books that are around 250 pages or less. And I do that for a couple reasons. First off, for the most obvious reason, space issue. But the more interesting thing is that by giving your brain just a little task of what to look at, it can filter some of the noise out. You're not looking at every book on the shelf now. You're kind of skimming until you find that smaller book. The other thing too is that for whatever reason, there's a certain size of book that's become really popular in the industry, and it's not the tiny book. That's a good thing for us in this situation, because it means that they're going to be easier to spot. It's not going to be every single book you have to look at, and they're going to be less common. They're less likely to be the like mainstream bestseller that you can get any old time at any other bookstore in the country. You're going to be able to zero in on some goodies that maybe you don't see as often, or that there's not 5 million copies of. The second thing I do is I look for unusual or unfamiliar names to me, and or foreign names. This is a little cheat code because, again, if I've heard of the name, especially if you're not as book savvy, if you haven't heard of the name, it means it's probably not on a crazy bestseller list or a celebrity book club, which means that it's going to be more unique and more likely a better deal to get now than to just get at your local library or bookstore. That's always exciting, to get a good find that you can connect to that trip and have a solid memory of, versus just, you know, one of the half a dozen billion books that Oprah or Reese Witherspoon or whoever recommended. No shade to those guys, but they're not what I prioritize on a trip. As well as the fact that it is a little bit of a cheat code if you're looking at foreign names, that you're probably going to get slightly more diverse content in those books, and I think that's always a plus and a win. So there we go. The third recommendation is to bring a little book sleeve. So I got this from my stepsister. It's a really lovely little thing. It packs, you know, completely flat. It's, you know, just, you know, soft material, but it has a pocket, a sleeve for your books. And so I was able to fit all 3 books very comfortably into this. That allowed it to just travel better. I had less anxiety that pages were gonna get bent or the hardcover was gonna get, you know, dinged out like crazy. Because there's nothing quite like getting a new book and you get it home and you're like, oh, it already looks like a hot mess. It looks overly beaten up from the journey. So this is something I always thought was like, not a luxury, but like not a must-have. It's just like, whatever. But it really is kind of lovely to just go the extra step from like a plastic bag to just like a nice little bag where you're like, okay, I know all my books are going in here. They're just a little bit more secure. It's not, I don't know if padded's the right word, but it just has the slightest double layer to it. And the material too feels like it's slightly waterproof, or water resistant at least. So those are some great things to look for in a little book sleeve. And again, it takes up no space at all on the way to, and then on the way back, you have the comfort of knowing that your books are a little bit in a more travel-friendly situation, if you will. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's just a short little video, but I had a great time with finding these books, and and help to spread the trip bookshop love, if you will. So like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye.